Hello and welcome back. This is the first video in a series that I'm going to call Community Contributions, and in the vein of what Figure It Audi actually is, this is when we're all working together and we uncover something that's worth digging into a little further. I'm happy to award the mantle of first contributor to Vic Melnick, so thanks for your comment, Vic. And basically what you said is that the torque for the two unique bolts of the three that mount the lower subframe support onto the subframe must be incorrect. And that's based on your comment of saying one is an M12 and the others are M10. And I'll assume that why you meant that those were wrong is because what I cited in the motor mount video was this section here in 32 with an M8 and an M10. So in a quick product search, I realized that you're absolutely correct. Those are definitely the right product numbers for the applicable bolts here. And I headed back to my Bentley Publishing manual to figure out what's going on. And you're right, there is a problem here. In fact, what I uncovered is that there's a printing error in the book that led to this mistake. So let me show you what I found. Starting on 40-3 in the front suspension section, what we have is a two-pager of the diagram, again, I showed in the video. There's 38 items marked on this list. And in the 2 pages of listed components and their torque settings, you'll notice that it only goes to 37. I had to read this a bunch of times to figure out what went wrong, but it all starts right here on number 23. So 23 is correct. It is a bolt. In fact, it's that single long one that attaches the lower subframe support onto the front subframe. But what you'll notice is that at the end of the second bullet here, it says bolt. Bolt as if it's another heading. And that's exactly what happened. So bolt was supposed to be the heading of the real 24. Therefore, the first correction is the actual torque setting is 81 foot-pounds for the long single bolt that goes into the subframe support. Now, this book does say when something needs to be replaced as if it's a stretch bolt, and this isn't the case where it says that, obviously, but when I looked at the part number on ECS tuning, it did say that it was a stretch bolt and should be replaced there. So if we're acting on our most conservative nature, I guess when you're switching out the motor mounts and you do decide to drop the subframe, that you should be replacing both of these bolts. Things start making more sense now. Knowing that 24 is truly a bolt, looking at what it is in the diagram, you can see 24 and 26 are both bolts that pass through the front stabilizer link, the link being the real 25, as we can see right here, and these torque numbers are corroborated in 2 more places. So looking at the first one is on page 40-8, and in this table down here, look at the bottom row, connecting link to front stabilizer bar. So that's number 24. We see the same torque setting right there. And then over on page 417, we see the second bolt that passes through the stabilizer bar into the control arm. Again, 30 foot-pounds. When we head back to the diagram, 25, which we know to be the 26, so those are the 2 bolts that we just talked about, also 30 foot-pounds, so it all checks out. Here's where the second printing error comes in. Now, the pattern would be when we're looking at 26, we're really going to be talking about diagram number 27, but that's actually not true at this exact point. 27 as the lower control link, in other words, that control arm, is correct. So what happened here is that probably someone working on this figured out that things weren't making sense and they shuffled around a bullet note. But the problem with this one is that the bullet to 26 actually belongs on 28. And the 28 bolt is right here. Now the fact that this is a bolt that travels through the rear section of a control arm and bolts it into place inside the subframe is actually really helpful. Because I know it's a bit of a jump to say moving a bullet out of 26 into 28 makes sense, but what gives it away is the 52 foot-pound setting. The reason I believe this to be true is that when we're looking at page 40-8 here in the top table, it's referencing the lower control link, so the control arm to the subframe. This is the only time in the entire chapter where 52 foot-pounds is mentioned, save for one single other example of the only other control arm being mounted to the subframe at also 52 foot-pounds. So again, it just makes sense. This brings us to the second video correction for the motor mount video. 55 foot-pounds is the correct torque specs for the 2 shorter bolts. We know looking at 28 in the list will refer to 29 in the diagram, and now this is all starting to make sense. So we've got 2 dotted lines that goes up into the support we're working on, and this list shows that these are always replaces, and that is confirmed this time by the ECS site. When I look up that product number, it says they're stretch bolts, so Plan to have 4 more of these on hand if you're going to be dropping the subframe supports if you're changing out the motor mounts. From here on out, the rest of the list will just make sense because we know 29 subframe in the list is actually going to be 30 on here. 30 self-locking nut is also 31 here, so we can expect that number 32 in the diagram will relate to 31, another nut. And then previously I referred to these, number 32 there's 2 bolts, but we'll head up into here and see that 33 is 2 bolts. So you can work your way through the list and you'll find that all the way to 37 relates all the way to 38 on the diagram. And what's kind of funny is that there's even a little printing error right here. I like the bold open parentheses right there. Nice work, guys. If you take a look in the description of this video, you'll find that I've rewritten this entire list as to the way that I just described and what I think is correct. Thanks so much for watching. I think it's awesome that we can find problems and fix them together with some community information, and I hope we can build out this video series of contributions from the community even more. Subscribe, and catch you next time.